What's up guys, my name is Ace, and Season 2 for Battlefield 6 has settled in a little bit. I've managed to get quite a few hours into it, and today I wanted to share some of my initial thoughts and impressions, and most importantly, I wanted to touch on a very hot topic in the community since Season 2 launched, and this is the movement nerfs. But first, I want to share some of my general impressions of the season, and the big thing is the new map, Contaminated. I'm personally a big fan of this map. I actually think this is the best map in the game now. And I feel I've played it enough that I'm past the very early initial honeymoon phase of this. I think this map plays much more like what I would expect out of a Battlefield game compared to any of the launch maps in the game. And that's not to say that I hate all of the launch maps or anything. It's just this is a Battlefield map in my eyes. I really like that it's big enough that there's some room to breathe, but it also doesn't feel like a barren wasteland where you have to cover like massive open areas with no cover, just acting as cannon fodder to vehicles. I think it's actually pretty interesting moving from point of interest to point of interest or objective to objective. Even if you are out in the open, there's plenty of interesting pieces of cover that you can use and interesting routes that you can take. Additionally, there's a fair amount of complexity with each of the points of interest on the map. Like I'm thinking the center cave area, for instance. There are lots of little paths that you can take and methods for flanking people. And that's another thing that I feel is missing with many of the launch maps in the game, is they were just a little too simplistic, and therefore it was kind of just forcing engagements. This doesn't force engagements quite as much. It allows you that room to maneuver a little bit and position yourself well. And I found that to be very refreshing while playing this. Also, vehicles are a lot more powerful on this, and even as somebody that's like a pure infantry player, I rarely ever touch vehicles. I can at least really appreciate that, and it feels more like Battlefield, being a lot more scared of vehicles, and actually using my engineer class a whole lot more often so I can deal with tanks, for instance. Because if you don't have decent engineer players on your team, you're going to have a bad time on many of the game modes at least. And speaking of game modes, I think this map plays really well for Conquest and Escalation, and the big reason behind this is it doesn't feel so linear like so many of the launch maps in the game. Instead, things are spread out a little bit more, like width-wise on the map, and that makes the flow of the match a lot more interesting. There's lots of room for those big flanks around, and it's not just pushing like a front line back and forth and then you just hold all the flags that are behind your front line. It's much more dynamic because it's not so linear. So I'm a huge fan of this map for those game modes in particular. Breakthrough, on the other hand, it's not my favorite Breakthrough experience. I will admit, after playing more and more matches of Breakthrough, I am warming up to it a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's just not really my favorite Breakthrough experience out there. Some of the points I just feel like have no cover and far too many vantage points overlooking, plus the vehicles are very powerful in Breakthrough on this, and that combination is just not really ideal, at least for what I look for when playing Breakthrough. So when it comes to the new map, huge win in my eyes. I'd love to see more maps like this. Unfortunately, it's the only map we're going to be seeing for the next month, and it would have been really nice to see a second map, even if it were a remaster. Like, quantity-wise, I would have loved to see another map, because as much as I like this map, I've been playing it pretty much 24/7. Every time I'm playing the game, I'm just playing on this map now, because I'm enjoying myself with it. And I know that hype and excitement around this map isn't going to be lasting super long. Now after that, let's talk about the new weapons a little bit. For the VCR2 assault rifle, I've got a gun guide coming on this very soon. I've used this quite a bit and I love it, and you'll see exactly why in that gun guide. I'm not going to get into too many details, but I think it's actually one of the best guns in the game now. Whereas for the new DMR, I hate it. I think it's the worst DMR in the game. Really not a fan of it. I've of course managed to find some success with it. I am putting the gun guide together for that as well. But statistically speaking, it's just not very good. So after the gun guide is done, I don't see myself ever really touching that one again. And then unfortunately, I just haven't made it to the LMG yet. I'm working my way through. I wanted to prioritize the assault rifle first, so I will get to the LMG, but I have no opinions on it at this stage. On a similar note, the Little Bird is here, and while I've had plenty of experience playing against it, I'm just not a vehicle guy, as I said, and I'm definitely not a pilot. That's an entire area of the game that I just don't engage with. I like being on the ground and shooting people with my gun. I have spawned into the Little Bird a few times, and I've flown around a little bit with it, and it handles quite well. It feels nice, but it's just something where I don't really feel qualified to share like very detailed opinions on every detail of it, but I do think it's an interesting addition to the game at least. And so with all of that covered, now let's move on to a big topic here, which seems to be quite polarizing in the community, and I'm just going to be sharing my opinions on this. This is the movement nerfs. Most importantly, the slide nerf, although there was also a bit of a nerf or just adjustment to acceleration curves when you're moving as well. And that did also effectively nerf air strafing. But the primary point of contention here seems to be with the slide itself. And this nerf to me was quite noticeable right away. Previously, with the slide, there was a decent amount of acceleration, so you could actually kind of boost yourself forward, and you could also chain that with jumps, for instance, to kind of launch yourself around corners, and you could also chain that movement together even more for some interesting combos there, to basically fly across the enemy screen very quickly. Now, after this update, the slide has very little acceleration to it. It does almost feel like you're sliding in mud a little bit, especially relative to pre-patch. And it's much less of a boost yourself forward mechanic, and it's more of a try to just dip down quickly while still maintaining some forward momentum and maybe sliding into some cover or just trying to evade some shots that are coming your way. And while I wouldn't consider myself to be an absolute movement god or anything, I definitely implemented slides aggressively and took advantage of aggressive slides far more often than anybody ever used it against me when playing pre-patch. So that's the perspective I'm coming from here, and I've got to say, while it was initially a bit jarring, and my gut reaction was they took this too far, after putting some more time in and adapting to it a bit, honestly, I really don't think it's that bad of a change. And if anything, I think this may have a positive impact on the general ecosystem of the game. Because in my experience, now that I've played around with it a bunch, you can still slide aggressively. You can still implement those movement techniques and really aggressively challenge somebody using slides and jumps and chaining them together. It can still be done, you're just not able to launch yourself at the crazy speeds that you were able to pre-patch. So in my eyes at least, I think some people are overreacting with this change, acting like everything is flipped over entirely, and now the only way to play effectively is to camp in a corner or post up on a piece of cover because movement's totally dead. That hasn't been my experience at all. I'm still able to use aggressive movement techniques, quite effectively for that matter. I'm just no longer really breaking the netcode in the game by moving at speeds that the netcode can't keep up with. And that's why I feel, after putting time into this change was appropriate. And to be clear, I'm not the type of person that wants movement just destroyed in the game so I can camp in a corner or anything. I generally like playing more on the aggressive side, and if I felt like they did take it too far, I'd totally be on the other side of this argument and I'd be pushing back against it. But after playing with it a bunch, it just hasn't been my experience that movement has been nerfed into the ground. Yes, it's noticeable. Yes, it feels different. But it really didn't take that long for me to adapt to this, and I still feel like I have the tools available to me to aggressively challenge people using movement. And if it cuts down on the situations where you can essentially exploit the limitations of the netcode by flinging yourself so quickly around the map, then I'm honestly fine with that, and I think it's healthy for the game. Now, of course, I acknowledge there is a skill gap attached to that, and being able to really effectively and consistently utilize that movement pre-patch wasn't something that the average player was doing or really capable of doing unless they really put the time in to practice it. So yeah, this change in my eyes has slightly reduced the mechanical skill gap, but not to the level that many people are making it out to be. And I do think if the skill gap that you've mastered is relying on outpacing the netcode in the game, then that is a little bit cheesy and not healthy for the player base as a whole, because we have to remember the people that were really taking advantage of that, they're a small percentage of the player base. For the vast majority of the audience of Battlefield that tends to be more on the casual side, since it's never really been a highly competitive shooter, I think this was actually a positive change. Now, in saying all of that, I do also understand the argument of reducing recoil and making it easier to control recoil while also nerfing movement. That does seem like a strange choice to be doing at the same time, because now you're providing less of an ability to evade shots with an easier ability to hit shots. And one of the complaints in this game is that the time to kill can feel too fast at times. So that part I get, and I wouldn't be opposed to a little more recoil on some of the guns, for instance, to make it so it's a little more difficult, or maybe some more damage range drop-off so guns can't be quite as beamy at long ranges. But overall, just focusing on the movement itself, I'm personally quite happy with the movement changes they've made. I've already adapted to that just fine. So overall, when it comes to my thoughts on Season 2 so far, I've been enjoying myself with it. I find the map to be fun, I find the new guns to be fun. I personally think the movement changes were just fine. But at the end of the day, I still can't help but think that this just didn't feel like enough, considering the massive early success of this game. Yes, it's fun, but I don't think this is enough to really be drawing a bunch of people back to the game and keeping them hooked and keeping them around long term. To me, this feels more like what I'd expect out of like a smaller, like a mid-season update, not a major seasonal update that was also delayed a month to apparently address even more player feedback. And I do find that to be a bit unfortunate, considering how big of a start they had to this game and how much better it could be. But I think it's just going to take far too long to get there. Either way, I'm enjoying the new season for now, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. What have your thoughts been on Season 2 so far for Battlefield 6? Whether that's the new map or other content we got, or the movement changes, for instance. Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.